Imagine carrying a heavy bag of stones everywhere you go. Each stone represents a grudge, a wound, a betrayal. At first, you think you can handle it. You convince yourself that holding on to the pain will keep you strong, that remembering the hurt will protect you from being hurt again. But as time passes, the weight becomes unbearable. It drags you down. It drains your energy. It robs you of joy. The longer you carry it, the more you suffer. Unforgiveness is a burden that follows you wherever you go. It seeps into your thoughts, your relationships, your heart. It keeps you trapped in the past, replaying moments of betrayal, feeding resentment, and deepening wounds. It tells you that you must hold on, that justice will only come when the other person feels the same pain you do. But the truth is, the other person may not even be thinking about it. Meanwhile, you remain imprisoned by emotions that weigh on your soul. There was once a man who was deeply wronged. A trusted friend betrayed him, causing pain that could never be erased. He told himself that he had moved on, that he didn't care anymore. But every time he heard that friend's name, anger resurfaced. Every time he was reminded of what happened, bitterness grew. He believed that forgiving would mean excusing the wrong, that letting go would mean the other person got away with it. So he held on, not realizing that the only one suffering was himself. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever been hurt so deeply that the thought of forgiving seemed impossible? Have you convinced yourself that holding on to resentment is the only way to protect yourself? Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It is not pretending it didn't hurt. It is not about letting someone continue to harm you. And it is not always about restoring a broken relationship. Sometimes, forgiveness means setting boundaries. It means choosing not to let the pain control you anymore. It means refusing to let the past define your future. Forgiveness is a choice, a decision to release the burden that has weighed you down for too long. It is not about forgetting. It's about healing. It is not about excusing. It's about freeing yourself. Because the truth is, the longer you hold on to resentment, the more power you give it over your life. And the moment you choose to forgive, you take that power back. But how do you forgive when the pain still feels so real? How do you let go of something that has shaped you for so long? How do you release anger when it feels justified? The path to forgiveness is not easy, but it is possible. And it begins with a single step. Forgiveness begins with a choice, a decision not based on emotion, but on faith. It is not something that happens overnight. It is a process, a journey, a commitment to release the weight that has held you captive. The first step is to pray for strength. Forgiveness is not always something you can do on your own. Sometimes the pain is too deep, the wounds too fresh, but when you turn to God, you open your heart to His healing power. You ask Him to help you release the bitterness, to replace anger with peace, to transform your pain into something greater. The next step is to acknowledge your feelings. Be honest about your pain. Admit that what happened hurt you. Suppressing emotions does not lead to healing, but dwelling on them does not lead to freedom. Recognize the pain, but do not let it define you. Then, seek God's perspective. Remember how much He has forgiven you. We all have fallen short. We all have made mistakes. Yet God, in His mercy, offers forgiveness freely. He does not hold our failures against us. He does not demand that we earn His grace. And just as He has forgiven us, He calls us to extend that same grace to others. Forgiveness does not mean trust is instantly restored. It does not mean there are no consequences for actions. It does not mean you must allow someone to hurt you again. But it does mean choosing to let go of resentment, choosing to release anger, choosing to break the chains of bitterness that have bound you for too long. There was once a woman whose heart was shattered. Lies, betrayal. She thought she would never heal. She carried the pain with her everywhere she went, convinced that forgiveness was impossible. But one day, she cried out to God, asking how she could ever move forward. And in the stillness she heard, "As I have forgiven you." She realized forgiveness was not for the other person, it was for her. It was to break the chains of bitterness, to step into freedom, to stop allowing the past to steal her future. Jesus gave us the ultimate example of forgiveness. Beaten, humiliated, abandoned, hanging on the cross, suffering a pain we cannot imagine. And yet, in that moment, he spoke words that changed eternity. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He did not wait for an apology. He did not wait for their remorse. He forgave even as they mocked him, even as they rejected him. If he could forgive in that moment, then surely we can find the strength to forgive. Forgiveness is not easy. It is not instant, but it is necessary. Holding on to resentment does not heal wounds. It deepens them. Refusing to forgive does not make you stronger. It keeps you trapped. Forgiveness is about healing yourself. It restores your spirit. It brings peace to your heart. It allows you to move forward without the weight of bitterness holding you back. When you choose to forgive, you choose freedom. You choose peace. You choose love over resentment, healing over pain, grace over judgment. Unforgiveness is a cycle that feeds itself. Hurt leads to anger. Anger turns into resentment, and resentment hardens the heart. When we refuse to forgive, we allow the past to control our present and dictate our future. It shapes how we see others, how we trust, how we love. Over time, bitterness seeps into every part of our lives, affecting our relationships, our emotions, and even our health. Studies have shown that holding on to anger and resentment increases stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. It can raise blood pressure, weaken the immune system, and increase the risk of heart disease. Emotional wounds, when left untreated, become wounds of the body, and yet many still hold on to unforgiveness, believing it protects them. But what if the real protection comes from letting go? A man once held a deep grudge against his brother. Years had passed, but the wound was fresh. Every time he saw his brother's face, he felt the betrayal all over again. He refused to speak to him, refused to acknowledge his presence. He told himself he didn't care. But deep inside, the anger consumed him. He lost sleep. He lost peace. The bitterness grew, and before long, it was not just his brother he resented. It was life itself. Then one day, he heard these words, "Forgive, and you will be forgiven." He wrestled with the thought, could he really let go? Did his brother even deserve it? But then he realized, this was not about his brother. This was about himself, about his own heart, about the freedom he had denied himself for so long. Forgiveness is not just about others. It is about you. It is about breaking the chains that have kept you bound. It is about choosing peace over pain, love over hatred, healing over hurt. When you forgive, you do not erase the past, but you release its grip on your life. You choose to no longer let it define you. You choose to stop carrying the weight that has burdened you for so long. Jesus did not say forgiveness would be easy, but he did say it was necessary. In Matthew 6:14-15, he teaches, "If you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." Forgiveness is not just an act of kindness. It is an act of obedience. It is a step towards spiritual freedom. It is a reflection of God's love working in your heart. And so the question remains, will you continue carrying the burden of unforgiveness, or will you release it and step into freedom? Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It is a daily decision. The enemy will try to remind you of the hurt. He will try to reopen old wounds, whispering that you should hold on to the pain. But every time those thoughts come, you must make a choice. You must choose to forgive again. When bitterness tries to return, pray for strength. Ask God to fill your heart with His peace. When anger resurfaces, remind yourself that forgiveness is not about them. It is about your freedom. When you are tempted to hold on to the past, look forward instead. knowing that healing comes with every step you take toward letting go. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. It does not mean you must trust someone again. It does not mean you allow harm to continue, but it does mean you release the debt they owe you. It means you surrender your right to revenge. It means you choose peace over pain, grace over judgment, and healing over hurt. Jesus did not wait for an apology before forgiving. He forgave even as he was being wronged. If he can forgive in the midst of suffering, we too can find the strength to forgive through him. So today, choose freedom. Choose peace. Choose to release the burden that has weighed you down for too long. Go. Be free. Forgive.